let me give you some thoughts here that can possibly help. So when it comes to fundraising and grant writing, I think one of the things you got to consider is the fact that part of the reason you may not be obtaining the funds that you are looking to obtain is because organizations or funders are only going to fund nonprofits that have some sort of history behind them. So if you just got your charity number in Canada, um, that communicates to a funder that the organization has not is not mature enough to manage funds if donated. Now, this doesn't mean there are no funders out there that won't support what you do. It just means that the funders you're targeting might have to shift. If you've been pursuing major funders, if you've been pursuing funders who are well known, well respected, who typically give a lot of money to nonprofits, then it's going to be a non-starter for them because the work that you're doing does not, or at least the years in business does not align with their decision-making process. So they may not tell you that, but that is primarily the reason. The other side of this, when it comes to years in business, how long the nonprofit's been functioning, raising money, managing money, the other challenge that they're looking at is if you're new and you haven't gotten any money, there's going to be questions about whether or not you've been able to generate results, right? So, have you gotten any results, any stats that you can report out on that they can connect with and see the progress of the organization? A lot of nonprofits or people who launch nonprofits have an idea, they launch, they go. Most times they're doing work, but they're not tracking the work. They're not managing the results of the work. Therefore, in the proposal, there's nothing in the proposal that's of substance that communicates what you've accomplished that aligns with the funding interest of the funder. Um, I think a third component to think about, as to why funders may not be funding your work at this point, um, is the fact that they're not sure that you are fully plugged in to the needs of the target community. So a lot of funders are really, really smart. They know a lot about their area of funding interest. And if you've identified a funder who funds what you do, you have to assume that this funder is deeply involved in this work. They're deeply involved in the community you're targeting. They know a lot. They have history. They have research. They have experience. And essentially, if they read a proposal that is not on par with the knowledge and research that they have, they know that this is not a good funding decision. As it relates to work being done outside of Canada and another country, the U.S. is similar in that if a funder is chartered to fund work in a designated area, whether it's in the U.S. a city or a town, a region or a state or a country, that's where they want the work to be done. If you are proposing something to be done internationally, then that means that you have to pursue funders who support international work, right? You can't pursue funders that are Canadian based with the hope that they will support something back in Ghana. So where are you from again? Is Nigeria? Nigeria. So you can't have that expectation. Same thing in the U.S. It's like saying a funder that supports work in Vancouver, they will not support work in, I don't know, Toronto, because they're two different regions, two different needs, two different situations, two different geographic interests that need to be addressed. And so funders have specific geographic interests of where their funding is going to go. So to help you kind of navigate through this, I recommend that you continue to build the infrastructure of the organization. All your plans need to be in place. Strongly recommend you develop a strategic plan and a master grant application. I strongly recommend you develop a fundraising plan. Now, as a part of this strategic plan and fundraising plan, one of the ways to get around not getting funded is to figure out which organizations in Canada in your area are doing what you care about, are doing the same things, serving the same community, and figuring out how you can partner with them to pursue funding or to be a part of a project where they are receiving funding so that they can write you into a grant, they can give you a percentage of those grant dollars, and you can start generating revenue that way. The second strategy I recommend you do is to build your board if you haven't done so already. If you have a board, you might want to think about rebuilding a board, making sure that you have members on your board who are giving. So a giving board is a really powerful strategy that can unleash dollars on your behalf or on behalf of the organization, and that can really move the needle in generating revenue as well as identifying partnerships and relationships that can help push this project forward. The last thing, I hate to hear that you liquidated your retirement accounts. I think that's not necessarily the best idea, but a more efficient idea if you're going to fund this is to take some of your bi-weekly pay or your regular pay and set aside a percentage of what you bring home every couple of weeks or every paycheck and donate that to the nonprofit. Therefore, it's creating cash flow. And if you have family, friends, board members who are doing the same thing, they're donating little by little every 2 weeks, every pay period. It creates cash flow, and it changes the dynamic of what you're able to do. It shows income, and it starts to put you in a position where you can start to do the work in the community that you care about. Therefore, as you're pursuing funding opportunities, you can show that we're getting stuff done. A good starting place at this juncture, I would recommend, is figuring out how to partner with other organizations. So you need to research who's doing the same work that you're doing. You want a wide range of folks who are doing the similar work as you, whether they've been in business for a long time or just starting out. The reason why you want that range is so that you can look at, what's happening in the marketplace. The other reason why you want to do that is if these folks have been in business for some time and doing similar work that you're doing, they likely have some sort of funding in place. And this allows you to research how they're sustaining their operations and which funders that they're targeting, how much they're raising from their board, how much they're raising from individual donors, how much they're raising from sponsors, etc. So if you do nothing else from this call, I recommend that you research who's doing the same work and make that list and do a deep dive into their operations. As you do all that, you research their funders, their funding sources, their revenue generation. Then I would start to figure out how can you approach them to explore working together, whether you're doing a small part of what they do or some other variation of that. Because this is a new organization, I recommend volunteering to do some of this work, to get exposure, to understand how this work functions, how different it is from what you're doing, how similar it is. I would recommend volunteering as an organization before you start approaching it from a business perspective and saying, hey, can you write us into your next grant or write us into your next proposal? I think that volunteer opportunity is going to give you a lot of information and give you a lot of insight into what to do and how to navigate this situation in terms of building your organization